Hello my good friends, welcome back to another video. Hopefully you guys are all having a fantastic day. Today's upload is going to be a episode that I have actually done for the past 2 years. And the first year I did this, it was very popular. Last year I did this, it was still fairly popular. So this year I decided to do it as well, as many people like these type of videos and they seem to enjoy this. So today we'll be answering the question on who'll see a white Christmas this year, 2018-2019. So that's basically all you need to know. Another disclaimer I want to make is that this forecast I have around 60 to 75% chance confidence in. Am I 100% confident in this forecast? No, obviously it's a forecast, it's a prediction, it's an educated guess of some sort, so it will not be 100% accurate in nature. So if you like to support this channel, you know my channel is called MBGC Combo if you're an old returning member. If you're not, then you're new to this channel. Check out my channel, check out this video, consider subscribing, consider liking the video, and you will know what you're going to expect if you subscribe. So thank you for that. First off, what I want to look at is the historical probability of seeing a white Christmas across the United States of America. Right now, this is AccuWeather. This is a fairly good website. I use it a lot in terms of forecasting things like this. Their maps, their probabilities are fairly good. And we are looking right now at the potential for a white Christmas historical probability, and in those darkest blue areas that is over 75% chance. I would even say over 80 to 85% chance. Those areas almost always see a white Christmas. And this year I would say that areas east of Minnesota, or east of North Dakota I should say, in that dark blue, almost 100% chance of seeing a white Christmas. It is going to be, I think, darn cold and fairly snowy December this year. So that is why I do think those states in the darkest blue almost have a confident, almost 100% chance of seeing a white Christmas. Areas in the lighter blue, 50 to 75, I would decrease it more like to 50 to 60 because it is, I'm not decreasing this 50 to 60 based on this year, just in general, because you can see my city, Chicago, is highlighted in this 50 to 75, and I would say our city is about one and two and I don't know, like maybe 2 and 3, it is not a white Christmas, and then 1 and 3 is a white Christmas every year. Like 1 in 3 years, it's a white Christmas. So I think that's a little bit less than 50 or 75% chance. But again, this map isn't perfect by itself, but I do think it's still fairly accurate. We move on into the lighter blue, that is 25 to 50% chance, and that is including cities like Kansas City, Topeka, St. Louis, Indianapolis, Columbus, Ohio, even, I think that, Boston, Massachusetts, maybe New York City. It's right on the border. And those areas, 25 to 50% chance, and in the lightest blue, under 25%. So just because you live in southern Texas right here, doesn't mean you'll be 25, under 25. So this is probably somewhere close to 5, and right here in Oklahoma City, maybe Arkansas area, Tennessee area, that is more like, 20 to 25. The next thing we need to look at is the weather pattern, the actual weather that will be occurring and impacting the area around the December time frame, around the December Christmas time. It doesn't necessarily need to be a white Christmas, doesn't need to be, snow on a day of Christmas. It could be already snow laying on the ground, and that's what a white Christmas is qualified. And the amount of snow that needs to be laying on the ground for a white Christmas is 1 inch of snow. We are looking right now at an El Nino or an ENSO forecast, and an El Nino is favored to form in the next couple of months and continue through the northern hemisphere winter 2018-2019. You could see November, December, January. That is specifically centered across the December time frame, and around that time we have a 70 to 75% chance of an El Nino developing. And an El Nino, if you don't know what that is, it looks something like this. So typical El Nino pattern: warm across the north, dry across the Midwest, wet and cool across the south and the southeast. So yes, that would mean that the northern part would have maybe a slightly less chance of seeing a white Christmas compared to average, and compared to average, the South may have a greater chance. But there's not every El Nino is the same. That's a ridiculous statement to make, that every El Nino is the same. This year, in fact, I think the El Nino will almost not be even a factor, as in its characteristics will be almost diminished by other things. Obviously, it will be a factor, but its impacts won't even be that well seen across the north and eastern part of the country, and I'll explain why in just a minute. and El Nino is measured by warmer temperatures across the ocean in the eastern Pacific Ocean, right off the coast of South America, and this is what a typical one looks like. And during an El Nino Modoki, which I will explain why this can make a huge difference in the impacts on the winter, you can see that during an El Nino Modoki, whatever you want to pronounce it as, is not as warm across the ocean. It's more central based. That's why it's also called a central based El Nino. It is cooler by the waters of South America, but it is warmer in the central part of the country, central part of the ocean, and it is cooler by the East Asia area. So right now we need to look at our current SST, and our current SST sea surface temperatures are somewhere in between. You could definitely see an El Nino of some sort forming, but we aren't seeing a true El Nino, eastern based El Nino, but we're not seeing an El Nino Modoki either, so we're kind of in between, and we will need to see where this takes us. Some people are forecasting for a strong El Nino Modoki to form, very clear. No other argument. Some people are also saying that an eastern-based El Nino will be forming, but there are going to be some other things impacting it. I'm somewhere in between. I'm not sure whether an Modoki or an eastern-based El Nino will happen, one of those two. I am now leaning towards more of an El Nino eastern-based to happen. However, that still doesn't mean that the impacts will be like this. There's still one more thing, and actually many more things, but one more thing I will include in this forecast that will be impactful on my final Who Will See a White Christmas probability. And so again, somewhere in between, we are also seeing though some warming, a big blob of warm air. Leave my arrow on. So we are seeing a big blob of warm air across the Gulf of Alaska, and this tends to make the jet stream go way up across the west and then dip down across the east. And then right by the east coast, we have some warm waters by the southeastern part of the United States, which could actually fuel the big storms that could ride up the east coast, leading to a greater probability of a white Christmas. So that is another thing we need to watch. We move on into the impacts of an El Nino Modoki versus a El Nino Eastern based. So this is, I already showed you the Eastern based El Nino, typical El Nino is that one graph with all the reds. Yeah, with this, the warm across the north and dry, and wet and cool across the south. During an El Nino Modoki, you can see it's more of that pattern where the jet stream goes up and down, where it's wetter than normal across the south, the east, and the north. Basically, across the eastern half of the country will be warmer, and then across the western part of the country will be drier. That's an El Nino Modoki, central-based El Nino. However, again, like I said, we're not going to be really seeing this very pronounced Modoki or an El Nino or an Eastern-based El Nino. So we're kind of in between. So we need to keep looking further for answers. Right now, this is this is a model El Nino Outlook, and this is basically forecasting the strength of an El Nino. You could see that some are forecasting as strong as 1.2 to 1.5 to 2 degrees above average, but most of the models are forecasting across the months to be actually it's forecasting right now to be at its strongest, and then kind of diving down into more of a neutral pattern later on into next year. But that is not even what we're concerned about right now. We're looking at this winter time frame, November, December, January. All the models, the CPC Council, the DYN average, and the statistical average are actually showing a fairly good, fairly weak El Nino actually, and weak to moderate El Nino, which is completely different from a strong El Nino. So a strong El Nino has its own impacts, but we won't get into that since it won't be impacting the United States this year, because we're looking again at a 1 to 1.5 El Nino at the greatest, which is considered a weak to moderate El Nino. And a weak to moderate El Nino typical impacts on winter compared to a regular El Nino is where the northern branch of this jet stream dives down further than during a... Sorry if there's some noise in the background. That's my clock going off. So that maybe be producing that music that you hear. So hopefully that could shut down. Yes, it did finally shut down. And right now we're looking, so again, a weak to moderate El Nino. You can see that the jet stream typically does dive down a bit further into the United States, and that brings more cold air into the United States. And also with the two jet streams merging right along the East Coast, this could bring stormy weather across the East Coast, which could with the cold air lead to big storms, big snowstorms, blizzards, and nor'easters. But we can't exclude, I meant to say, the central and eastern part of the central and northern part of the United States, where the cold air could also be getting in, and with this northern branch could be producing some storms of itself. And then across the west, I do think this year should be not the best year for a white Christmas in those areas that it's iffy. If you live in the mountains and you always see white Christmases like every single year, this year you will probably see it again. But in those areas where sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, I would bet on you seeing not a white Christmas this year due to the milder and possibly drier conditions across the northwest, excluding the southwest where it could be milder but a little bit wetter. Another thing I want to look at, which I already kind of got into with with those sea surface temperatures, is the ridging in the west, as you could see, and the troughing in the east. So the pattern could be actually conducive, and many people are agreeing on this, many meteorologists, that the pattern this year will be very repetitive of what we're seeing right now. And if you're watching this video around in early November 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th time frame, or 10th, 11th, 12th, since the 9th was yesterday, there's a huge cold blast of air coming into the United States, producing very chilly temperatures. Today, here in Chicago, we're not even getting out of the 30s, so very chilly for November. We had our first snow already, and you could see that it is the jet stream. You can't really see the jet stream, but you can draw it out where the jet stream goes like this and dives down right in here and brings warm air into the west and cool air into the east, and this would bring more snow to the eastern part of the United States and less snow to the western part of the United States during the winter time if this pattern were to repeat. And there's some fairly good agreement that this pattern would be repeating itself over the winter many times. So again, this isn't what we're looking at right now, current Arctic outbreak, but I am kind of using this as a demonstration of what could happen later on in the year. This isn't exact demonstration. I think this was from the year 2013, 2014, and I think we could be seeing many of those Arctic outbreaks again, where if you remember that, it was very cold. It was many records. It was down as cold as -20 here in the Chicago area, many below zero readings in terms of Fahrenheit. And this is, I think, what we could be seeing and re-seeing over the years, or over the months during this winter, which would lead to more cold. With that jet stream bringing those storms could lead to more snow, which could lead to a greater chance of a wetter Christmas. So now my final outlook, again, isn't the best forecast in terms of the map. It's the quality of the forecast, not the quality of the map. So I should have said not the best quality of the map. But we are in these pink areas. I am predicting a 75 to 100% chance of seeing a white Christmas. And as you could see, I increased it down as far south as central Illinois, Indiana, southern Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine. And I did this because, with that cold air, I do think the snow will be spreading further south. And I did include the mountains in the 75 to 100% chance. But if you do usually see snow during Christmas and you're not highlighted in the pink, I'm sorry, because it's almost impossible to pinpoint down every mountain range in the West. So I did my best by highlighting the biggest mountain ranges. But overall, the thing I want you to take away from this map is I think the West will have a lesser chance of seeing a white Christmas this year, and the East will have a better chance of seeing a white Christmas this year. So as you can see, the 50 to 75% chance, I extended it way further south into central Missouri, southern Illinois, the whole state of Indiana, central Kentucky, the whole state of Virginia, and into the Appalachian Mountains, and the whole state of Colorado, and half about central Kansas. 50 to 75% chance of seeing a white Christmas. Now this area is a 25 to 50% chance of seeing a white Christmas this year. Again, it's even further south than it should be based on this. If you go back here, based on this map, it's even way further south, because according to, sorry if I am giving you a little bit of a hard time with this, but according to AccuWeather, the historical probability, this should be in a 25% chance or under, but this year I'm giving it 25 to 50. And then in this lightest blue, I am saying 25% and under, but I would say that many of these areas are actually closer to 25 than 0. But these areas in the white are almost nothing, maybe 5% chance of seeing a white Christmas. These areas in Texas have seen a white Christmas before, but it's been very rare, and I don't know if it will be a white Christmas. They may see snow this year, but I'm not too sure about a white Christmas, so I gave it a 5% chance. So hopefully you enjoyed, hopefully you learned something new. Please consider subscribing to my channel, please consider liking the video, and as always, I'll catch you all guys in the next episode. See ya, bye.